Just a few months ago, people came in their thousands to towns like Surat and Yulbar in southern Queensland to mark the anniversary of the end of the era of horse-drawn transport in this country, with Cobb and Co coaches last ever run from Surat to Yulbar in the reenactment. And sadly, on the weekend, Australia lost one of its most talented and esteemed horsemen and coach drivers with the death of Don Ross. The veteran Queensland coach driver personally owned 3 refurbished Cobb and Co coaches, and he spent pretty much all of his working life driving them and keeping that rare skill set alive. And he was the driver on that reenactment run, as it's taken place over every 5 years over the last more than a decade in this part of the world. And I had a privilege of sitting down with Don earlier in the year for a chat about the chapter of his career that he was most proud of, which was when he was lucky enough to be one of a team of drivers who took a Cobb and Co coach on a 4,300 kilometre journey from Port Douglas to Melbourne back in 1963 to raise money for the Royal Flying Doctor Service. It was the longest coach run in the world.
I just love doing this sort of work. That is in my blood. If I'd have went into wrecking motor cars, I'd have been a millionaire. And here I'm just a humble man.
No regrets?
No regrets. No regrets.
Tell me about the logistics of a journey like that, though. How much planning goes into the route you take, how many horses you're going to need to take, where and when you'll need to change those over, where you're going to stay, how you're going to avoid traffic, getting permission off the police and the councils? I mean, just thinking about that makes my head spin. Were you involved in that side of
Not
planning?
in that side of it.
Right.
I was just a driver and a truck driver on the trip. Johnny Tatum was in charge of all that. Johnny Tatum went to America with his wife having trouble, couldn't get what medicine they wanted here, had to go to America with her, and he studied all the routes over in America, and the longest run over there was only peanuts to what we did. Like they had 1,000 k's or something like that. We done 3,000 miles. 3,000 miles by horse. You know, the organisation to do it and all that sort of thing, you had to, Johnny Tatum, I'd say, be the main man. He went and worked it out before and put it on paper. A bell of the ball every night.
Every night?
Every night, a bell of the ball.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like there was lay days, we had a day off here and there sort of thing. It was just a great experience to go on it.
So you would take the horses that were going to be swapped over?
Leapfrog a head sort of thing, and set them on the ground and be harnessed up ready when we come in, and just rip them out, put them back in harness under the fresh team, and away we go.
And we have to emphasise to people might assume that you went straight down the Bruce Highway and the Pacific Highway, but no.
Right through the centre of Australia. You've got to realise it was probably dirt for 2,000 k's of it.
So traffic wasn't too much of an issue? No big doubles.
The great experience out there, you'd be out in the flat in the middle of nowhere and you'd hear an old Foden come along with 3 decks of cattle on or something like that. You'd hear it coming for 2 hours and hear it going for 2 hours in the middle out there somewhere. It was a great experience, I tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what, did you just camp out each time?
Camp out, yes.
Under the
we
stars?
got an extra $2.50 to sleep in a swag.
Right. Look at all the money you were saving. It's great. Yeah.
True.
And probably a better sleep than some of those outback hotels, I would imagine, as well. Did anything go wrong?
Never.
Really?
Never. It was a great experience. Nothing went wrong. The horses might have got out. It might have been Longreach, somewhere out there. The horses got out, played around the town a bit sort of thing. Yeah, simple things like that, you know what I mean?
What do you think about when you're out there on your runs, out in the middle of nowhere, just keeping the horses in line and under control? Do you get time to get lost in your thoughts, or is it a concentration?
It's a concentration all the time.
Right.
If you stop thinking, you're lost.
So no listening to music or being able to listen to the birds or anything like that? None of that?
Nature's nature.
Did you have passengers?
Yeah, there was £5 a stage, and we were very, very quiet out there. Wasn't too many passengers, but around the towns they used to come, 20 mile out to meet us, get on and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. And what did people make of it? I mean, back in the 60s, though, there would have been kids who still had no knowledge of that this was ever a thing.
Johnny Tatum took a bit of video of it, just coming to different towns and all that sort of thing. I got one at home, and the people that are there at Port Douglas. Now, Port Douglas is right up the top of Queensland. And when you see the video, there'd be 5,000 or 6,000 people there.
Wow.
Where there's 2 pubs up at Port Douglas, there was 2 pubs up there, and about 20 or 30 fishermen. That's all there was there.
Yeah, so people had obviously come from outlying areas everywhere.
Miles and miles.
Because what they were seeing, unless they were really old fellas at the time, they'd never seen before in their lives.
Unbelievable.
What was the highlight of the trip for you?
David, I'd say the Belle of the Balls.
Why is that?
The dance with very attractive people.
It's got to be some payoff. That's lovely. And that was basically the way that funds were raised.
Yes,
am I
funds
right?
were raised.
As well as selling tickets on
we
the
were
passages.
getting pound for pound in Queensland, 15 shillings to the pound down in New South Wales, and only 5 shillings in Victoria.
Right, okay.
The government subsidised sort of thing. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, sort of thing. Every pound we raised in Queensland, they gave us another pound.
Brilliant.
New South Wales, 15 shillings and 5 bob down, because they only run a very small flying doctor service up north, right up in the top of Queensland.
Tell me, you bought it in, I think, was it 5 minutes early? By the end of the trip or something?
Yeah. The thing is with it, what held us up, we could have done it in half the time, because what held us up was we travel a lot quicker than everyone thought. Like Johnny Tatum worked out a certain amount of time to go up the Gelatin Range. He allowed us 2 hours with a change, halfway up, and I think we went up in about 35 minutes.
Really? Gee whiz.
So,
Gosh.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Unbelievable. And those horses, they travel along at, say, 15k, it might be a little bit better, an hour travelling, yeah.
So towards the end you were having to wait and
outside schools to wait for the kids,
right,
and all that sort of thing, yeah. Unbelievable.
Do you remember any particular reaction from a child or even an adult that saw you that stands out in your mind even to this day? Does anything...
Well, the thing is, you got to realise it was back in 1963, and a lot of people were horse-orientated sort of thing, you know what I mean?
Yep.
They accepted the horse and all that sort of thing. And most of these towns, they turned out people to see it come into the town and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
So the horses weren't an attraction, but still seeing
the coach come in,
yeah, absolutely extraordinary. Yeah,
probably if you put it down the main street today, there'd be more people look at it today.
It was such an adventure for you. You enjoyed it so much, but could you ever see someone taking on the same thing again, or do we just not think of these big projects these days? Do our minds just not work that way?
Without Cobb and Co Museum being up here and the one out at Surat, I think they're the highlights of keeping Cobb and Co going. And without them going, it sort of die out. Everything dies out. Everything doesn't last. Yeah.
Is that inevitable, do you think, or are you confident that that memory will remain in place because of museums like Cobb and Co and the Surat?
That's the only thing that'll keep them going for a lifetime. There's more interest in it now at the present moment. I sold 2 coaches to a fellow called Peter Webster, and Peter Webster's family had Webster's Bakery, where they pony harness up 40 to 50 horses every day. They were established just outside the Bogger Road Jail, just across the road from it. Yep. And he come down and bought 2 coaches, and we're going to start up. But anyhow, just things went wrong, and he sold them 2 coaches the other day. And that fella is one of these fellas that's going to keep Cobb and Co alive.
And why is it important that we do that?
It's history. It's part of Australians' history. 3 men come out from America, started up, which is called Cobb and Co today. It could have been any one of those 3 men's name to start it up. Yep. It could have been Ferguson, could have been somebody else, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but anyhow, Cobb and Co is stuck, and I think it'll be in the minds of people for another 100 years at least. It was the biggest transport company in the world. They were everywhere, like South Africa. They went everywhere.